This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett Batty and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions. In today's episode, we will talk about why we chose the date that we did. We're going to talk about our release strategy and especially our screening strategy. This is episode 2 of Truly Independent. All right, Garrett, we're back. Episode 2. We're still alive. Back home in Sacramento, if you get 2 episodes, we call that a streak. So we're on a good streak here with this show. So let's give the listeners and viewers some context here. We're just under about 6 months out from the planned release of The Carpenter. So I want to start out with, okay, I mean, it's May 28th. Like, let's get really specific. We're recording this May 28th. It'll probably come out in a week or two. But we want to document where we are and how far out so that people know, oh, this is not something that you just decide one day and next week you release your movie. It's a long process. I'm feeling a little under the gun. I'm sure you are as well, even with 6 months time remaining. But let's start out with why November 1st? Like, we're eyeballing that date. I know you had tossed around some other dates. So can you walk us through the process that you were kind of going through the last few months, talking with the financier of the film and figuring out the distribution strategy for this? Why those dates? Why not summer? Why not next year? Why'd you pick those?
Yeah, good question. And so we are. I don't know if this podcast will come out before the official announced date or not, but if it does, then this is the announcement. But yes, we are looking at November 1st to release this film. And as I talk with distributors, or in the past when we have distributed content, that is one of the key questions right up front is, what is the date you want to release? And there are a lot of factors that go into that. For an independent film specifically, we have to consider, okay, what other movies are coming out that weekend? What time of year do you want to release? Is there screen availability on the amount of screens that you want? Will theater bookers be willing to take a risk on your film when they have dozens of other films that they could program? And then also, what is the nature of the movie? Is the movie a fall movie? Is it a Christmas movie? Is it a big summer blockbuster? Is it an awards contender? So all of these questions and variables go to helping inform the date. So after lengthy conversations and going back and forth, we actually chose a date in early October. We thought, okay, right now we look at October. We look at the slate and say, okay, October 6th, I think Joker is coming out. Joker 2 is coming out, and you'll see if you go to your websites, your IMDb or whatever, there are not a lot of movies that are releasing that weekend because of Joker. I think Hollywood's anticipating that's going to be a big tentpole, and so there's not going to be a lot of screen space around it. And it's going to just kind of suck up the entire audience of moviegoers. There might be some counter programming. You might get like a Paw Patrol or a kids movie that gets released. So we wanted to steer clear from that. I think as an independent filmmaker, I look at that and go, okay, well, then next weekend that creates a little bit of a vacuum or a little bit of an opening, because if Hollywood's anticipating that Joker is a big tentpole, the following weekend, there's probably going to be fewer releases, and there's an opportunity for an independent film to get on some screens. So we chose a weekend, a week after Joker was released. As I started to kind of softly announce that and test it, I had a distributor reach out and say, "Hey, we have just filed a release date with ComScore on that date that you're announcing. And our films are kind of competing for an audience. They're in a similar market. So we've had lengthy conversations with this other distributor saying, okay, what's your film about? What's your target? Who's your audience? And I think these are open conversations, but they're very behind the scenes, and they're collaborative in nature, saying nobody, an independent filmmaker is not going to get a Barbenheimer scenario where two films come out on the same weekend and they both do great. We, there's a certain number of eyeballs for a niche audience, and we don't want to compete with those. We want to support each other in that. And so we decided to release 3 weeks later another great date, November 1st. Right now, that's what we're announcing. And who knows if we'll pivot again or we'll be able to stick to it. That was a long answer, Darren.
Yeah, I love it because it reveals some insights about how this industry works. Like, if you think about how the studios do it, because they drive a lot of the strategy for us independents, whether we like it or not, because we're constantly looking at what films are coming out. In the last 5-10 years, you really were looking at Marvel and DC and Disney and some of these the biggest distributors out there, and they were announcing films 2 years out. They said, here's our strategy for May 2025 and June 2025 and July 2025, and there are 4 or 5 movies every summer that one a month, and they did that to kind of stake claim on that weekend. Say, I think it was Marvel that really expanded the summer blockbuster season into May. And this was the first year in 11 or 12 years or something like that. I think 2007 or 8, when the first Iron Man came out in May of that year or June of that year, where we didn't have a big Marvel release in May, and it kind of left it open. But yeah, we're constantly looking at, okay, what's already out there, because it really just highlights this is a supply and demand issue. So say that your local theater chain has 10 screens. Well, if you've got a big release like Joker 2, that might take 3 of those screens that weekend. So it's not just that you're competing for 9 screens, you're competing for 7, because one movie has taken 3 of them, because that's how many people are going to go see that movie that weekend. It's a matter of how many seats do we have? How many screens do we have? How many screenings can we do of the movie in a given day? So if a movie is Killers of the Flower Moon and it's over 2.5 hours long, you can't do as many screenings every day. But if they're still taking that theater and that screen off of the market for that weekend. And so there's a lot of kind of inside baseball that goes into the strategy of picking a weekend to release your film, because if you're going to do 600 screens, for example, are there even 600 screens available? Because if you have both Barbie and Oppenheimer taking 3,500 or 4,000 screens, that doesn't leave a lot more. I don't know if you know what the total number of screens are in the United States. I don't. But, supply and demand. It's what's at play here.
A wide release is 2,000 screens or more. So if you're saying, okay, we're going to release our movie wide, that's got to take up 2,000 screens, and that's theaters, right? And then the theaters will put those on as many plays as they want to. So you say, okay, I think there's, I don't know, I guess there's no way to find out except for Google on how many screens there are. But we do know that in 2023, there were 130 wide release films. If there's only 52 weekends in the year, you're looking at more than 2 films a weekend wide releasing. Okay, and if you go to your local movieplex where there's more than the 10 screen movieplex, they're going to open a wide release movie on more than one screen there. And so yes, as an independent film, we're competing with wide release movies every single weekend of the year. So selecting a date, it's imperative that you say what wide release is coming out that we can counter program, or or that has made its impact and is now trailing off. And so there's an opportunity to release, right on its heels.
Yeah, it's fun. We could probably spend a whole episode on it, but if we do, it'll be in the future.
That's true. So, anyway, choosing a date is important, and one of first things that you need to do. And that's what we've done this week.
Yeah. So where are we at right now? What's kind of taking most of your focus? We're 6 months out, like we said, or just under 6 months out. What are we doing with our time, and where's all our energy going to get this movie successfully released in November 1st?
So a couple of things are kind of, wake up in the morning and I know I have to do that day. They're keeping me busy. Right now I'm building the team. So I think I mentioned in our first episode that there's never just it's not a one-man band. And as in like making a movie, a screenwriter sits there and writes the movie, and he at that point he or she are working solo. And then it grows, the project grows. As a director, I come on board and we grow the project and it scales up. Our distribution strategy will mirror that. Where it's conversations right now with me and the executive producer saying, hey, here's what we want to do. And then now I am growing the team. I've brought, I've reached out to different companies to ask them to help book the movie onto theaters, onto screens. So those companies have relationships with theaters. I've reached out, and we'll bring them in to talk to them also. I think in future episodes. And then so I've got the booking side of it, and then I'm also bringing on a marketing side of it. And so we've been having meetings all week between the theatrical booker and the theatrical marketer to say, okay, who's doing what? Let's not step on each other's toes or duplicate efforts. And then what is the release strategy? So we're now just kind of in the very preliminary stages of developing that. And I'll say one of those things that we can talk about is we're going to do a screening. We'll do many screenings and promotional screenings. Our executive producer asked to do a screening on June 6th. So that's also taking up a lot of my time.
Yeah. So that's what I want to focus on today, because, from circulating and being involved in this release, that is a big part of the strategy, is how do we get the movie in front of an audience? But one question we get a lot is, doesn't that dilute your audience? Like, if you're going to show it to a couple hundred people, does that mean those people aren't going to show up opening weekend and you're kind of giving away tickets for free? Like, what's the kind of thinking behind doing a screening? What's the reason to do it, as opposed to just focusing on the marketing and driving up a lot of demand and getting as many people there opening weekend as possible?
I think you want to give away about 10 to 15% of your product, and it grows. It increases the demand. So yes, if I were only trying to fill 10 screens, then doing one publicity screening would be kind of the max, and hopefully that people would come out. We're trying to fill 600 screens, so we will do lots of advanced screenings to build word of mouth and to create an interest. The idea is that we want to create, there has to be a big enough demand that when we do open, that there's enough positive word of mouth, people have had positive experiences with the film, that there is an awareness and demand. And you can do that through festivals or publicity screenings or test screenings. But I think so. That's kind of what the family is wanting to do. There's value in this advanced screening if it's done right.
Yeah, I think what it brings to mind is the idea of doing a festival with your movie. And if you do a festival in January, like Sundance, or you do our movies, the last 2 years have screened at the Zion's Indie Film Fest in February. And if it's releasing in November, that's, what is that, 10 months gap? Like, it's too far for that word of mouth to carry. Word of mouth maybe has, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks worth of distance on it, but you're trying to stretch word of mouth out from a festival all the way to your opening weekend 10 months later. It's just too far removed for it to have an impact. And so the idea of, we're 6 months out, we're setting up a screening that's about 5 months out from the movie, and you're planning on doing many more. That's part of just, you're building word of mouth to start, but then you're building on that momentum with each new screening. And then we're doing a lot to capitalize on those screenings so that we're not just screening the movie and then walking away and saying, thanks for coming, right? So we're building in things like an email list. What a novel idea of like, we not only want to capture the email addresses of every single person that comes to a screening, but we want to turn that into an engaged audience of fans and movie lovers that want to help support the journey we're on. And so we're building a little bit of a street team. We're building the word of mouth engine that's going to help carry us through that opening weekend. Because if we've got 10,000, 20,000 people on an email list, 30,000, 50,000 people on an email list that we can activate, it's not just because we want to sell them tickets opening weekend, but we've been engaging them and we've been sharing behind the scenes and we've been telling them about the journey that we're on and they want to join us. Well, all of a sudden, that's essentially free marketing. And the best form of marketing, hands down, is word of mouth. And so part of the strategy is going, well, how can we get the email addresses of passionate people who love the movies that we're making and putting out in the world that want to help us make them successful? So that's a big part of the screening as well. With each one, you know, if it's 100 people that are going to attend, it's 100 new email addresses. And you do that 10 times, that's 1,000 email addresses. And it may seem like a small number, but my goodness, all it takes is one person who's got a big family and another person who's got, you know, a YouTube channel and someone else who's got a big Instagram following. And all of a sudden that compounds pretty quickly. And so that's part of the reason for doing these screenings, is not just to get feedback and not just to experience the movie with an audience and get word of mouth, but to really build that engine that can help us in this kind of grassroots, guerrilla, independent marketing, because we don't have $200 million to market this movie. I don't know if we want to talk about budget and how much we have and how much we're setting aside or what like is a good target for these things, but I've heard things like 50% of your production budget should be set aside for marketing. So on $1 million movie, that's $500K. And a lot of filmmakers look at us and go, yeah, you're insane. There's no way I'm going to be able to raise another $500K. But the way that you leverage small budget for marketing is to build an audience, like we talked about last week or last episode.
Yeah, I think it's imperative that that we have to look at any marketing effort, or any release effort, is to build the audience for the movie. And so, yeah, and you go, okay, well, a screening, we are going to give away the movie. We're going to give away essentially 150 tickets to this film. And what is the cost of that? Well, it costs, $10 a ticket. So there's an expense for the screening. But what do we get in return? And we'll get a lot of information. We'll see how the audience is going to respond. If it's a positive response, then we have advocates for the movie. We've got great word of mouth. If it's a lukewarm or negative response, then we get to see where we need to pivot. We need to change the movie. Do we need to change the messaging? And how do we do this? I think another thing that we will do at the screenings, and you've seen, this is a model that Hollywood uses, where we'll get lots of pull quotes. We'll have a camera there and a little bit of a step and repeat and film people as they come out of the theater and get their reactions. And we will use those for marketing. And those are great tools that will be shareable content that will help word of mouth spread. You can never do too much to market a movie. And Hollywood knows that, and they spend with that knowledge. You can certainly spend too much to market a movie, but you can never do too much. So, I mean, it's impossible to for an independent film, it's impossible to just evangelize your movie.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about the strategy, because that's part of it. You touched on, we're capturing pull quotes, we're setting up a camera. You've seen the versions of a teaser or a trailer that go out where it's just a whole bunch of people going, I loved it. It was amazing. It's my favorite movie ever. And you cut those together in a 30-second snippet. And nowadays it won't go on TV. It'll go on Instagram Reels or something like that. But that's fine. We live in the day that we live in. But strategically, like it's actually fairly simple to set up a screening, because most, if not all theaters, you can call them and say, I want to rent your theater for a night. And they go, okay. And generally it's like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. It's not going to be a Friday or Saturday evening when that's their big nights. They don't want to rent a screen to you, but for a couple hundred or $1,000, you can rent a screen. And you can get a free service like Eventbrite, which is, I think, what we're using to capture emails and put up an event and say, hey, here's a landing page. If you would like to come see our movie with us, it is free and you can bring a friend for free. You just put in your email address and we will put your name on the list. And there's 150 ticket capacity. And as soon as it's sold out, it's sold out. And there you go. You put that up online and you tell people about it. And all of a sudden, you've got yourself a screening. So what else, Garrett, am I missing as far as the strategy or the actual setup? If someone is listening to this, they go, well, I want to implement that strategy. What else do they need to do in order to get a screening, a successful screening?
I think you've nailed it. I would add to make sure that experience is a positive experience, whether they like the movie or not. There should be a certain amount of hype and enthusiasm and responsiveness. I mean, you're asking people to spend a couple of hours of their time to come and essentially watch your movie. You hope that the value is equal in return, and so make sure that it is. I think also that as people show up to the screening, I think we give them value. Have a cast or crew member there to meet and take pictures with them. Even have little handouts, little 8.5 by 11 posters or whatever, 10 by 17 posters of the movie. Because if it is a positive experience for them, they will then that poster's going on their wall, or they're re-sharing the photos that you took of them, and your audience is growing. Another thing also is one more thing is you're also representing to the theater owner the response to the film. So make sure that there is an audience there, and that might be your lesson learned. The takeaway, if you say, hey, we booked the movie in this theater and 4 people showed up and 2 of them I call parents, then you go, okay, well, we don't have we have to do more. So yeah, use your track your tickets on Eventbrite or whatever event ticketing software you have, but make sure that if you book a screening for 150 seats, that you make sure 150 of those seats are filled.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an interesting or important insight. It's not just for you and the audience, it's proof, because the proof is always in the results with this stuff. So if you can show over 10 screenings in 5 months that you sold out 10 screens, any theater owner is going to go, oh, well, I'll give you one for the weekend and we'll see how it goes, right? You're basically proving yourself to these bookers, to these theaters, saying, we're a safe bet. Because if they could have given it to another movie that also wants to release that weekend, but they're down to the last theater, the last room, the last screen in their building, like it's supply and demand. So you got to show them, hey, we have the demand for this movie. So that's a really, really cool insight.
Darren, you used a cool, I interrupted you, but I had a thought. You used a cool term about a safe bet. I think that also goes for the audience. I think there's a psychology in an audience to go, hey, is this movie a safe bet? Like, is this okay that I go see this? I mean, I can tell you, how many times do you get excited for a movie and then you hear somebody or an opinion that it didn't do well, or the opposite. When a movie does well opening weekend, you can't go on any social media platform without Hollywood telling you that, hey, it's the #1 movie in the world, or this is the #1 rom-com of the weekend. And the reason is because I think we as an audience, we want a safe bet. We want to feel validated that we're making a good choice. And I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to spend $20 on a movie. I don't want to be the only guy out there doing that. Like, I'd be that, whether I want to see the movie or not, there's a certain amount of do I want to see this movie in public? You know, am I the only one that's going to see this movie? And we hopefully, if you're screening, if there is an audience there, if you've done your job to get an audience there, you're already establishing precedence of this movie is something people want to see. I'm looking around, not at the screen, but also at the people around me, going, "Holy cow! We have a moment here that's going to escalate."
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out with your marketing side of your team, because that's just free content. You know, you're basically getting user generated content for free because they're sitting in a seat that you gave them, so you can film them, you can take pictures of them, and you can get feedback, and you can get testimonials, and you can get those pull quotes, and like, there's so much that we can do for free now. It doesn't cost anything to film someone on your phone and then put it on Instagram or YouTube Shorts or TikTok or whatever it is nowadays. And that's how these things blow up and become big things. You look at Barbie and Oppenheimer last year. That's the one we keep kind of referring to because it's the most recent like $1 billion success story. And they did a lot of really good engagement with the audience type marketing. And those things ended up on social media. And that's what people talk about. And that's kind of how these things are driven nowadays. We're not doing radio campaigns and TV commercials for this movie. That's not necessarily the strategy. Yeah. So it's how do you get not only the existing audience that you have their emails and they're engaged with you and they know you and they attended a screening, how do you get them to talk about it? But what are the things you can do to get awareness and the algorithms on these social media platforms to pick up what you're talking about, put it in front of other people that they think would be interested? So it's a little bit of a game there too. So that'll be fun diving into that with our marketing person.
Sure. And we might be doing an episode after this screening that could have totally different tone. Like, oh, okay, that didn't work. So who knows? That's part of the discovery, the demystifying. Hey, if we're going to make a mistake, if there are mistakes to be made along the process, I can guarantee you we're going to make some. And so, yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully this goes well. I know that we released a movie in 2013. You mentioned the Saratov approach. And our distributor at the time, Brandon Purdy, said, "Okay, we have a very, very limited budget. We're going to do, I think, 10 preview screenings." And I'm thinking, "Man, we're going to give away our box office. Like 10 screenings. That's way too many people." And he goes, his theory was kind of what we've already discussed. Each screening was in different cities, and I showed up and he booked, whatever the smallest theater in the megaplex so that we could fill it. And then we did the Eventbrite thing, and we released a trailer online to get people excited about it. And then it showed up, and in 100-seat theater, in each theater that we did this at, there were about 200 people that showed up. And I was panicking, like, Brandon, this is like, people aren't going to get in. They're not going to be able to see the movie. And what are we going to do? And he said, this is exactly what we want. Take pictures, get people up there. He says, you need to get a sign up that says right now that says this movie is sold out. Sorry, you're not going to be able to get in. And there's that instinct of like, oh, are they having a negative experience with the movie? And he was quick to point out, no, this is a very positive experience. They're getting to meet you. They're getting to meet the actors. And they will see the movie, but it's being validated that this movie is worth seeing, is worth their time.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm excited. I've got my tickets. I think I should probably go check that I have tickets because I want to be there. I love seeing our movies with people. All right, well, we've got 2 questions from the last episode, which I'm excited to dive into. So, question 1 is, what does a distributor do? Garrett, we spent a whole episode talking about distribute for a movie, and we did not tell people what distributors do. So maybe involved with that question is, what do you look for in a distributor? What's the value of a distributor? But really, like, what's the role of a distributor? You're the filmmaker, you're the producer, the writer, director, but we've got this other role of a distributor. What's their role here in this process?
It's a great question. And honestly, I think one that this series will help answer. I don't know that I can necessarily answer that accurately just because of lack of knowledge, but also it's in my experience, it's so wide. That term distribution or distributor is so wide. And I think generally we expect that a distributor is going to get your movie in front of audiences. But we can talk. Let's talk specifics in future episodes about does he book theaters for you? Do they book screens? Do they promote and market the movie? Do they handle the business side of it? Are they doing collections and settlements? All of that, and in general, yes, a distributor does all of that. But we'll talk about that throughout the series.
Awesome. All right. The other question we got was, why 600 screens? You mentioned that in the last episode. That's the target for this release. You mentioned today that a wide release is 2,000 screens or more. A lot of indie releases. Sometimes you'll even see big movies that come out and do 4th screens. The first movie that I worked on that went into theaters, IFC put it into like 4 theaters in LA and New York for opening weekend. And then we did a special screening here in Utah. So maybe 5 screens total or something like that. So why 600? Why that number?
Great question. And certainly that number may fluctuate and change throughout. But our goal is the family's goal is for the Carpenter to release in the fall and to break into the top 10 box office. If we do, and we have very little resources to do that. So if you do a per screen average and you look at kind of number 10, number 9, number 8 on your weekend box office in those weekends in the fall, then to have a per screen average of a certain amount and to get into that top 10 average, you have to have that many screens to do it. Does that make sense? So I'm being kind of vague because 1, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and 2, I'm not going to discuss budget specifics on this movie at this point. But yeah, if we need $2,000 per screen, if we need to get $1.2 million opening weekend, divide that by 600, and it equals a per screen average that's realistic for this type of movie.
Yeah. I do think we have an entire episode plan on kind of the budget and strategy and all of that and the numbers, which is the stuff I love talking about. So I could do an entire separate podcast just on the numbers of everything, but that podcast probably already exists. But that's cool. It is a little bit of you define the outcome, you define the goal, and you say, how do we realistically achieve that goal? And it has to make sense. Because if you're saying, oh, we're going to have it released on 10 screens or 12 screens and have $100,000 per screen average, that's not a thing. It's got to be in the realm of possibility of what is a typical per screen average for an independent film that has the kind of budget we have. So you look at what's already been done, and yeah, you want to shoot a little high, but you also want to be realistic and you want to give yourself the best shot you can. And so releasing on 20 screens probably isn't going to get you there unless the strategy is to expand the release as you go. But also, we don't have the budget to do 3,000 screens or 2,000 screens because there is a cost associated with every screen that you add. Again, we'll talk about more in depth as well. But it is a little bit of the math works out and based on the goal that we have for the release. So very cool. Look at that, man. Episode 2 in the can. Episode 2 of Truly Independent. I'm loving this so far, Garrett, and I'm really excited now that we've recorded 2 episodes and we're going to put them out in the world and to get the feedback from the audience and from the people that we're making this for. It's not just for ourselves. We definitely like kind of doing this stuff in public and sharing the process and the journey, but I'm really excited to get this in front of the audience that we're making this show for and sharing the behind the scenes with. So if you are listening to this and have not yet gone over to 3coinpro.com/podcast, we've got some exciting free gifts for you. And that's how you can submit questions for this episode and previous episodes. And we will answer those in the future like we've done today. So thank you for listening. Garrett, any parting thoughts?
Definitely go to the website and leave your email and send the questions. But I'm looking forward to next week's episode.
we should also say that that's the best way to get notified of the screenings that we'll be doing this summer leading up to the release.
That's right.
So get on the email list, 2coinpro.com/podcast.
Stay tuned. We'll talk about how the screening went. All right, take care.
Sounds good. Thanks, Garrett. See ya. Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey, be notified of new episodes and screenings, and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to share this episode with a friend. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.